So hi guys, welcome back to Time to Talk with Cognitive Sports Therapy. You have got Dr. Claire and Lucy in the house today. Hello. So April is Stress Awareness Month, and Stress Awareness Month cannot go past us at CST without us doing a nice session on how we can use our breath to help manage our stress levels. Loads of research out there to do with how it lowers our cortisol levels, how it's good for our physical health as well. So it lowers our blood pressure and it reduces our respiratory rate and it reduces our pulse rate. So it kind of improves our immunity. It improves our pain scores if we're chronic pain sufferers. It's good for our focus. It's good for our concentration. So breath work it's like a real pocket rocket thing that we can have up our sleeves, a really nice, easy thing. And Lucy is obviously our expert. So we thought we would do this session, Lucy, didn't we? Just our 15 minutes as normal, hopefully giving people some advice about what or how breathwork works. I think you've kind of got three kind of things you're going to talk us through a little bit and hopefully maybe a couple of techniques.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll try and, I could talk about this stuff all day, so I have made notes so that I'm a bit more succinct. But yeah, so broadly I wanted to sort of get us thinking about three different things. And all of these three things play back into the breath, and it's all really simple, which we like, right? So none of this is in any way complicated. But the first thing I wanted to bring up is the vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve is your 10th cranial nerve, and it has branches that go everywhere. So they go through a lot of our organs, and there's a lot of branches of the vagus nerve in the gut. And your vagus nerve is very, very closely linked with like having a healthy stress response. So what we want to be able to do is stimulate the vagus nerve to tell our brains. So the vagus nerve will send messages from the gut to the brain that we're not in danger. And often what happens is we live in a high stressed environment. We go from one thing to the next. We're being ping-ponged around all day, every day. And whether we feel stressed or not, or we're experiencing symptoms of stress, often what happens is we spend too much time in our fight and flight branch of our nervous system. And if you don't have healthy vagal tone, your vagus nerve isn't doing what it needs to do. It's not switching off that kind of it's the thing that will switch off the fear, if you like. So it manages our fear. And when we have healthy vagal tone, we can manage our emotions and we can kind of deal with stress more effectively. So your vagus nerve essentially correlates with the capacity to regulate stress, and it can be heavily influenced by breathing. So when you breathe well, you essentially light up your vagus nerve, and it starts to shift your nervous system to a rest and digest response, which is what we want. So number one is breathing to stimulate the vagus nerve. And there's loads out there on the vagus nerve now. There's lots more science behind why this nerve is so important. And for years, people have really sort of struggled to understand the depth of importance of it, and it's really coming to light now, isn't it? How important vagal tone is.
Yeah, and I think as a medic, we always used to think of the vagus nerve as being the kind of big nerve that also is involved in our sort of cardiovascular system. So, being able to use your breath to control it and manage it, I guess, or switch it on is, as you say, it's working on a real physical level and through your whole system.
Yeah. So when you have good vagal tone, you have the ability to self-soothe. The better equipped you are to stimulate your vagus nerve, the better equipped you are to self-soothe. And this is really, when we're dealing with stress, understanding how to soothe yourself and how to undo that is so important. And I keep coming back to this point, but it's not just a massively stressful situation. a one-off thing here or there. It's this constant build-up of little things that we live with, that we don't deal with, that keeps us in fight and flight, which increases cortisol, which then puts us on this hamster wheel of going round and round and round. So number one is vagus nerve, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. Number two is breathing through your nose. And this might sound really simple, but just check in with how you breathe. And often when we're stressed, we will breathe through our mouths because we're not breathing proper, deep breaths, as it were. We are stimulating more of an upper chest response when we're feeling stressed. And anytime that we're activating kind of through the upper chest, that again links to fight and flight. So there's all these little layers of things that kind of pile up on top of each other. So anytime you can breathe through your nose, you are essentially activating more of a diaphragmatic response, which is down, your diaphragm sits down here. Your diaphragm, when you breathe with your diaphragm and you breathe with your nose, you're activating that vagus nerve, you're stimulating that vagus nerve. So breathing through your nose is really important.
I think it's also more intentional, isn't it, Lucy? Because I think I'm not a very good nasal breather, but when I am breathing nasally, I'm actually putting more attention onto my breathing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I also always add here, and I don't know what your take on this is, there's some people who can't do it. I do encourage it, but I think there are some people, I don't want people listening going, no, well, I can't. If you've got sinus problems, if you've got something with polyps in your nose and you can't do it, don't panic. They don't need to panic.
No, please don't panic. The reason that I say nasal breathing is because it's quite simple for most of us most of the time. However, if you can't use your nose to breathe, then what we want to be doing is breathing, activating down here rather than up here. Often when you breathe through your mouth, like you say, you're doing it sort of unconsciously. There's little awareness to it, and you're activating your more accessory breathing muscles, so upper chest area. So breathing through your mouth if you need to is fine, but you want to be making sure that is you're actually activating your diaphragm. And it's really simple to check. You just put your hand on your belly, and as you breathe in, the belly rises up, and as you breathe out, the belly softens inwards. And that's really simply how we kind of know we're using the diaphragm. If you notice that you're breathing up here and your shoulders are going up and down and you're all tense and tight and you feel like you can't catch your breath, it's often because we're breathing too much up here and not down here. So breathing through the nose if you can, and activating a diaphragmatic breath, those two things again play back to the vagus nerve as well. So those things link together nicely. And then the next thing with how to breathe when you're not doing exercise and when you can is to breathe lightly. So we always think that a deep breath is this, right? And that's the exact opposite. That's going to have the exact opposite response in our bodies of what we want to achieve with a deep breath. So breathing lightly, and again, it's breathing with more awareness and in and out through your nose if possible. That's your deep breath. So it's simply just, and we can do it now. Just put your hand on your belly and just breathe in until you feel the belly lift and you feel like you've taken in a full breath. And then breathe out. And that's your deep breath. It's not a big showy thing. And actually, most of the time, as often as you can, people shouldn't be able to see that you're kind of even breathing. We don't want to see the movement of the body when you breathe. So keep your breath nice and light as often as you can as well. And that will really help. Again, it creates more of a diaphragmatic breath and it calms your nervous system down. It calms you down.
Because we know if you do that real thing that you were doing there, that actually the breath is sort of getting stuck almost in the throat area. It doesn't even get down to that area, does it?
It doesn't. And essentially you're activating, again, that upper chest response. Yeah. So a nice way to think about it is that your upper chest area, this area is fight and flight area. And this area is rest and digest area. So we want to be keeping this as still as we can, as much as we can. And this is where the breathing happens as much as possible. Now, obviously, we have these accessory breathing muscles for a reason, and they're there for when we need our fight and flight branch of our nervous system, right? We need that to stay alive. That's what it's there for. And our ancestors, when we're born, we're born breathing through our nose, and our ancestors, they would start to breathe through their mouth when they were out kind of hunting and gathering, and there was a real perceived danger that they were trying, there was a real stress level there. And over the years, what's happened is we've sort of taken on this mouth breathing as the norm, but actually it's telling our brain, we're getting messages to our brain that we're under attack, that we're out hunting and gathering, we're under attack, and actually we need to just try and reverse that a little bit and come back to that really gentle, light breathing in and out through our nose as often as we can. And we know that will really help impact our ability to deal with stress. And the other reason for it is it balances out the carbon dioxide and the oxygen levels in our blood. And that's important because we need a balance of these two things to enable our cells to absorb the oxygen that we're taking in when we breathe. And the more that we can tolerate the carbon dioxide, again, it links back to our ability to tolerate stress and kind of live in this state of balance as well. So when we breathe in and out mindfully and lightly, we're completing full cycles of breath. We're breathing at a slower rate, and it's balancing out all of the kind of the gases that we need in our blood to be healthy and to be resilient.
Yeah. And it's good to hear you say about that, kind of the difference between, I guess, acute stress when we need to have this response, and then chronic stress when we need to be able to kind of let go of it. And I've just put a blog post up on our webpage actually today to do with that issue of actually acute stress and that response being good for us in a way,
so
and we need it versus the kind of chronic stress and what damage it can do.
Yeah, and I think what it comes back to as well with this is we do deal with chronically stressful with acutely stressful situations, right? And a healthy nervous system and someone that has good vagal tone will be able to get through that situation. Their fight and flight nervous system will take over and keep them safe. And then they'll be able to recover quickly. They'll be able to reduce the heart rate, reduce the stress hormones, and move on. And somebody that is less able to do that, somebody that has a lesser vagal tone or lesser kind of awareness of all of this, those stress levels will stay with them for much, much longer. And it's important to recognize that a healthy nervous system is not just one that can relax, right? We need both branches of our nervous system. But when we're thinking about this in terms of kind of chronic long-term stress and just living these sort of stressful, busy lives, it's really useful to have an understanding of how we can shift the balance back towards resting and digesting, because we know that that's where we need to be most of the time for us to be healthy and well.
Yeah. So really aware of time, because we try and keep these to only 15 minutes, don't we? And we're already at 13. As you say, we could talk all day about this. This is CST kind of.
Sorry.
This is our bread and butter. No. It's amazing. And I do want to kind of promote your breathwork courses, because having done one myself, I think they're invaluable and something that we could all benefit from. So, check out Lucy's website and have a look at her breathwork courses, because they are worth doing, definitely. But if you had just even one technique, I don't know, or two, whatever you want to think is a good thing to do that you would like to share.
Yeah, so thinking about these three things, the vagus nerve, breathing lightly to breathe well, and also just we know that mindfulness and checking in with our emotions on a regular basis is another thing that really helps us deal with our stress levels. So I like to think of breathing as a meditation. So where you just sit and you focus all of your awareness, all of your attention on your breath. So the best exercise is the most simple one, and it's my best friend, and it's the one I do whenever I need any kind of breath work. And it's just simply breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 4. using the nose if you can, and activating the diaphragm. And you just do 10 rounds. Inhale for 4, exhale for 4. And what you're going to do there is reduce your breathing rate to roughly 5 to 6 breaths a minute. That's optimum for having our heart and lungs working in unison together. And when we breathe at that rate, we are putting our body into balance, right? So most of us breathe too quickly. A lot of us have jobs where we're talking all the time. So anytime that you can just think, right, okay, I'm going to sit, it takes 2 minutes, and I'm going to breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4, 10 times, or even just 5 times, you know, whatever time you've got. This is a really safe breathing practice, so you can do it while you're driving your car, while you're walking your dogs, but also any time that you feel like you're going to react to something, take a few rounds of breath and see if you can respond instead. When we respond instead of react, we're much better equipped to sort of deal with whatever is in front of us. So think about using that technique every single day, but especially when you feel that there's, you know, things are kind of bubbling and building up. So yeah, breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4, diaphragmatic breathing, in and out through your nose, nice and light. It will really, really help it on every single level.
Lovely. And I do advocate, if this isn't something that you routinely do or have as part of your kind of rituals, is the word, rather than routine, and it's worth maybe tagging it onto something else. So as you say, maybe it's a post meal thing, maybe it's post teeth brushing, something that you have in your day already, and then attaching it onto it, just so that
stacking the habits. Absolutely, it's really, really important. And we often put things like this in our newsletter, so do make sure that you're signed up to the CST newsletter that comes out, because we always include like really practical, helpful things in there as well, don't we?
We do. But thanks, Lucy. We've gone over time, but hopefully that's been really helpful. And as ever, feel free to send us any questions, and I can hand them on to Lucy. And as I say, I can't recommend her breathwork courses enough.
Oh, thank you.
You offer 2 types now, am I right about that? A sort of one-to-one and
yeah. So I do one-to-ones and which is just as and when. But then I've also got this 4-week program, which is where I sort of teach you everything, and that's the one I think that is most beneficial. But you know, nothing needs to be complicated, and there's so much evidence out there now about why breathing well is so important. So start with your 4-4 balanced breathing and see how you go.
Brilliant. Great. Thanks,
Lucy. Thank you so much. Okay.
Bye. Bye.